All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Matt with Downrange Firearms. We're going to talk a little training theory here today because I'm in the mood. So, two concepts. There are a lot of great trainers out there. There's a lot of great operators out there. There's a lot of great officers, soldiers, Marines, you name it. There's a lot of fantastic ones out there, and there's a lot of garbage ones out there. So I want to talk about the ones that have reached a certain level of skill. Same thing from the instructor side. Who are your best instructors that are out there, and where they came from, which is, I guess, the best way of describing that is where they came from. So there's two schools of instructors or any participant in anything, whether it's baseball, gymnastics, shooting, tactics, squat, dealing with people talking to people in general. There are people that are just naturally built for this stuff, right? I mean, everybody knows them. They're naturally super confident. The self-confidence has never been an issue for these people. They walk in, they touch anything, they're magically just like the best at it you've ever seen, period. It's bonkers. That is not me. That's made people like me jealous for ages when I come across these types of folk. I've had friends like this since my inception in life. I've had friends that are just naturally, they touch it and they're just great at it. Not one of my skill sets. Now, I'm slow to pick up everything. I need to do things very methodically, piece by piece by piece, step by step by step by step. So with that said, who makes a better instructor? And this is not a universal truth. Okay, I have my own theories, my own ideas about how this one comes across, but ultimately, it definitely gives different perspectives. It definitely allows for different perspectives. So, like I said, I'm a slow learner. I require a million steps, methodical approaches to everything, building things, learning new skills, riding a bike, shooting a gun, what have you. If you've ever taken one of my classes, you see just how methodical I am and how much back information I have about every concept that I teach. I know the neuroscience as to why things work, when they work, and all the good jazz that goes with that. And I do that for a reason. For me, I need that step-by-step play. All right, so when I learned how to shoot, I needed to break things down. I never picked up a gun and was like, boom, lights out. I'm shooting golf balls at 25 yards. I was not that guy. When I first started shooting, I was not particularly accurate. I was not particularly talented. I enjoyed myself. I had a great time doing it, so I kept on doing it, in spite of my lack of natural God-given talent. And as a result of that, I did eventually get better, and then I'm at the skill set that I am, the skill level that I am at today, which is fairly proficient, if I do say so. But my method of getting to that point was a very long, arduous process. It's not, like I said, nothing is quick for when it comes to me with things like that. Then there's other guys that come out there, they pick up the pistol for the first time of their entire lives. They show up to the range, they go pop, 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 and they go, well, that's not hard. Cool. That just, made me feel like I wasted, 500,000 rounds and 20 years of my life later, getting to that same level. Just doesn't seem fair. But let's forward that concept to an instructional standpoint, right? Let's talk about that from an instructional standpoint. So the instructor who comes your way and says, hey, I'm going to teach you how to shoot. We have two possible instructors out there. One that's like me, who's very, very methodical. They're going to teach you step by step from the ground up as you go through that. The person who's a natural born shooter, they might very well teach you initially the exact same way. My experience, take this for what it's worth, my experience, in most cases, this is not a universal truth. I've met some natural born shooters that are phenomenal instructors. That being said, the best instructors I know, or a lot of A lot of the best instructors I know, not all of them, like I said, it goes across the board. A lot of the best instructors I know came to it slowly and difficultly, more like me. The reason I think this is, take this for what it's worth, and I don't have a study of 4,000 instructors to confirm this, but this is my 2 cents based on what I've seen and experienced. There's definitely some bias here, so question to your heart's content. Love the commentary if somebody wants to show something different, especially if there's data on this. But in my experience, the instructors that struggled to get to their skill set and skill level were better instructors because they've hit every roadblock along the way. They know what to identify. So when they have a new student come into their class, get in front of them, whatever, they know what roadblocks to look for. So when that student's struggling, if they are struggling, they go, hey, been there, done that. Here's a couple of solutions that worked for me. It's easier, in my opinion, to relate to your students when you've run across the same problems they've run across. Do I think the pro guys, the ones that are just natural born, shooters, need that necessarily? No, they'll pick it up by default anyway. If you teach long enough, you're gonna live vicariously through everybody else. So when you find other people that struggle and then they have breakthroughs with the problems that they're running across, hopefully you're paying attention to that and copying that down in your writing that down in your internal Rolodex, so that if you run across it again in the future, you can act accordingly with that new student. But what I typically see is a lot of natural born shooters, when they first get in the instructor circuit, don't typically last real long because, one, they find that they like doing better than teaching. They like going out and doing the shooting, running and gunning and all that good jazz more than teaching other people how to do it. And I find no fault in that. I get that. Totally get why people would enjoy shooting more than teaching. The flip side to that is because they do it inherently and innately. They don't need a specific explanation. People learn different ways. Some people have innate ability. Some people need a verbal explanation. Some people need a visual demonstration. And some people just need to stumble through it, right? This is just the nature of how people learn. And there's different ways of doing it. Natural born shooters, a lot of them, when they first become instructors, are great at demonstrating it, but they're not great at explaining the nuances, the importance to it. And then there's no verdict, and a lot of times there's no, what's the term I'm looking for? There's no good description, verbal. There we go. There's no verbal description. They can do a visual demonstration easy enough. They can kind of sort of put people's hands where they know they're supposed to go. But if they're off by a half inch or 15 degrees or whatever, they don't have an innate knowledge that it has to look a very, very specific way because they've never had to be that discriminating. Me, I got very good about knowing where my hands are supposed to go and where someone's hands are supposed to go on a gun to function the way that we teach properly. Again, our school is not again, we haven't mentioned this yet in this one, but our school of thought and teaching is not the only school out there. There's lots of ways of doing things, lots of ways of skinning the cat, so to speak, and a lot of them work just fine. Our way of teaching works the way we teach it. When you start diverging, I don't like doing that because that doesn't work. I don't like how that particular way works, so I'm not going to do it that way. But keep doing, everything that we built compounds off of the previous thing. All right. The way we hold the pistol with our strong side hand, the way we do with our support side hand, how we grip it, where our body position, shoulders, wrists, all of that go. It all works together as a complete complete package, a complete system. And when you start breaking down individual components, because I don't like that, as opposed to, or I don't want to do that, as opposed to that doesn't work, or I have a physical reason for not being able to do this. Those are legit reasons. But if you divest yourself because of, I just don't like it that way, or I don't want to do it that way, that's where the problems start to arise with your natural born shooters. Because a lot of times they don't know and don't realize the nuances, because whenever they pick it up, they just pick it up properly. Not saying they can't learn, not saying some of them don't innately understand that concept too, because a lot of them do. You will run across these guys that they little pick it up and go, hey, this is the way to do it properly because X, because Y, because of Z. I want my hand and grip on that pistol this specific way because, you know, it mitigates recoil. It's a fulcrum. It's da 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 da. Take your pick. They can do that naturally. I haven't seen a lot of that. It's possible. I have run across it now and again, but very rarely can they, you know, innately just naturally shoot with no real instruction or guidance and then be able to spit that back out to the next person in line and make it clear cut, right? And make it so if they require more explanation or more description, they can provide it. A lot of times they can't do that, and that's really, really difficult. I'll give you another example because I've heard this before. You can't teach courage. You can't teach courage. I've heard that before on a number of occasions. And I disagree because I've heard this in the law enforcement community. People have said, "Oh, that person's a coward. They're always going to be a coward. You can't teach courage. You can't teach this. You can't teach that." I hilariously disagree with that statement. The reason being I say that is this is one of those I know from experience things. If you would have met me 20 years ago, I was a different person. I was, you know, not that I'm a giant now by any shot, but I was 120 pounds when I was in high school. I think I got hired on with the Rochelle PD at 127 pounds. I was a little guy. I'm like in the 170s now. So compared to then, downright girthy. I was afraid of my own shadow back then, 20 years ago. I was afraid of everything. I had no self-confidence, no self-worth. I was scrawny. I wasn't particularly strong. I got older. My short little army stint, we'll talk about that on a different occasion, but then I got into law enforcement. I got into rolling around. I took every self-defense class I could get into, whether it was the Gracie Fighting Systems, did a bunch of control tactics schools, a whole bunch of other stuff. In addition to that, I got big into the firearms, the self-defense, the SWAT racket, and I realized that you can absolutely train to run towards threats, to run towards fights, to get yourself face first in the nastiest stuff humanly possible. If you would have talked to me 20, 25 years ago, never. There wasn't an aggressive component to my body. Never got angry, never got violent. Wasn't in my nature. That's different. Now I have controlled anger, controlled violence. I know how to control my temper when I need to control my temper. I know how to release it when I need to release it. I know how to be aggressive, run towards the sound of gunfire now. I wouldn't have done that 20 years ago. I know that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I would not have done that 20 years ago. If you would have looked at me, there's a chance I would have been a problem child, truth, when I first came on with the Rochelle Police Department. But I sought confrontation, I sought training, and I sought confidence. The big reason people run from threats and are afraid of things and yada, 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 and they freeze up because they lack personal confidence. I don't think I can win this fight, so I'm not going to get into this fight. I don't think I'm going to embarrass myself, which is embarrassing yourself is one of the, highest level fears of people everywhere, which is stupid. But I get it, whatever. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to fail. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to freeze. I'm going to go the other direction. I'm not going to help, blah, whatever. Take it for what it is. Exposing yourself to those situations, get comfortable in those situations, shoot, fight, force on force, wrestle with people that are going to kick your butt, shoot with people that would win in a gunfight, do force on force classes against better subjects, fight, put yourself in uncomfortable situations, force on force with less clothing on. Don't wear the suit if you're going to have a force on force day with airsoft or with simunitions or something along those lines. Don't wear the hoodie, sweatshirt, thick jeans, extra layers, because I don't want the pain. Get used to the pain, acknowledge it, accept it, and truck through. Oh God, who was it? I'm drawing a blank. It's one of the guys from Black Hawk Down. He posted something. He's like, body armor for a cop or a soldier or what have you. Body armor is not there to save your life. It is to extend your life long enough for you to continue to complete your mission. If I'm running the sound of gunfire because somebody's murdering people somewhere, and I take a round, that body armor is not there to necessarily save my life or prevent me from getting hurt. It's there to allow me to continue to fight until I take down the threat. That's just the nature of that beast. When I went through just to go see how far I've gone, that scrawny little 12-year-old. When I went through hostage rescue school through Safariland 8 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever the heck it was, they say very specifically that the priority of life, you're not anywhere near the top. It's the victims of whatever that hostage situation is, innocent bystanders, yada, yada, yada. And then you're like a distant third on that list. The goal, the mission, everything in between is to put yourself between the victim and the bad guy. You signed on to be bullet catcher that day. Your priority is not to win the gunfight. Your goal is to separate the bad guy from the good guy and remove the good guy from that situation. You might very well absorb rounds doing that. I was on Elias's WMD team for a few years. It's if you're dealing with a bomb threat, bomb scare, something along those lines, your mission is to go find the bomb. It's not to just grab the people that are conveniently located and saying, hey, let's get out of here. If there's people still in that structure, we have to go find them and remove them from that structure. And our job is to go find that device. So bomb squad, whatever, can go and deactivate it. If we know there's a time clock attached to it of some kind, or there's a timer associated with it, we will leave an officer on that bomb, on that device, solely for the purpose of seeing if something changes. So they can call out over the radio, whatever the comms, what have you, and say, hey, that something's screwed. Hey, this is changing. Hey, it's going to go off, clear the building, whatever the circumstances may be. But part of it is too, if they get a bomb threat, whatever, they need to go and ensure that the device is just a bomb and doesn't have other things attached to it, radioactive material, chemical agents, biological agents, whatever. All these things, that's the nature of that beast. But saying that not anybody can do that, that's not true. People you would never expect can go through the training, go through the practice, work on their mindset, develop their mindset to become great at what they do. I've seen people that have gone from that 0 to 60 change of being absolute irrefutable cowards to some of the bravest souls I've ever seen in my life. And I would argue they're some of the best tacticians, bravest people I've ever met, because they have spent their careers not just building the self-confidence required to run into those situations, and to have that courage, but because their confidence is based on tried, true, tested facts, plain and simple. That's it. And this kind of touches back to what we talked about in the last student from last week, is the most skilled people in the world, your Delta Forces, your Navy SEALs, your full-time SWAT teams, etc. They are amazing. They are great because they are boring. They do the same things over and over to the point of nauseum. They field test, pressure test, every test in between to ensure that no matter what happens, they cannot fail. It's real tough to be scared in an environment or not be able to force yourself to go into an environment when you have practiced and trained and done repetition so many times that you are not capable of failure anymore. Why would you not go into that situation? Eventually you practice it enough that, as dark as it sounds, you want to run into those situations solely to test, to ensure that all of that training, all of that practice actually pays off. It's a different mindset, but it's absolutely true. Do I know guys that were natural born operators from the word go? Absolutely. And they became some of the best ones as well, because not only did they have natural talent, they had unlimited levels of discipline. Those guys are incredible. Absolutely incredible. Love having them. They're the unicorns of the training world. They're the unicorns of the personal protection, law enforcement community, military community, whatever. These guys that are natural born skilled people, they're still humble, and they're disciplined to do the things that they're already good at a million times over, to ensure everybody's good at it. Everybody can do it repeatedly, consistently, and that they aren't just, oh yeah, I'm going to come out on top on that. No. I'm going to come out on top because we've checked. I'm the best of the best of the best. That's the kind of discipline you want. That's the kind of discipline you want to see. And that's an awesome thing. From an instructor standpoint, those guys are unicorns, straight up. There's also a lot of guys that are really naturally talented that wash out of a lot of those schools just because they're so self-confident, regardless of their level of skill, that they don't know how to deal with, one, they don't know how to operate with other people. They get frustrated with people that don't have the natural skill set. And arrogance gets them in trouble. It's just a thing. Anyway, I've kind of walked around in circles on that one on the training side enough. Next week, we're probably going to talk more about carbine stuff. I might do a short live stream tomorrow about our carbine classes coming up this weekend if anybody wants to jump in. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.